All right, the hour of 8:30 having come, House Revenue and Finance Committee will come to order. I have a letter from Speaker Madigan substituting Representative Walsh for Representative Martino. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bradley.
Here.
Zaleski. Harris. Curry. Evans. Mitchell. Sims. Sosnowski. Stewart. Sullivan. Tryon. Turner. Walsh.
9, having answered the call, a quorum is present and the committee will come to order. First item of business, we have Senate Bill 107. This involves a property tax issue regarding accessibility. Is there testimony on this? Seeing none, are there questions of the committee? Seeing none, there's a motion due pass by Representative Harris. Is there leave? Leave being granted, this bill be favorably reported to the full House on a vote of 9 voting yes, 0 voting no, and 0 voting present. We have Senate Bill 508, Representative Crespo. This is a bill regarding convention centers and would affect certain areas of the state. Are there questions of the committee? Representative Sosnowski.
Yeah, it's my understanding, I think it's a question for the sponsor. It's my understanding that this would apply just to municipal-owned convention centers?
That's correct.
So does this include, my understanding is it does not include park district-owned facilities and or private convention centers in any of the areas around the state?
My understanding.
I would just register a concern in front of this committee. You know, Winnebago, Boone County area has a lot of convention space. This is just one instance where this would create an unfair advantage for other cities in comparison to the city of Rockford, for instance. But there's other convention centers around the state. So we're really picking winners and losers in this and creating an unfair advantage. And my understanding is that the goal of the legislation is to bring conventions from other states. So if we're looking to do that, you know, why we would pick just some facilities and not others around the state doesn't seem to be a good practice. Thank you.
Additional questions, comments? There's a motion due pass by Representative Sims. Is there leave or should we call the roll? Clerk, call the roll.
Bradley.
Yes.
Zaleski. Harris.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I cast the vote, I do want to make the observation that I think the remarks made by my colleague from Rockford are on the money, because this is specifically related to municipal supported convention centers, and that does create an unfair advantage. And I'd like to also add that the whole tourism issue and funds are being reworked potentially by the governor's office this year, and I'd like to see how this fits in with it. So I'm going to put it out on the floor, but I think it needs full discussion. I will vote yes to get it out on the floor.
Evans. Yes. Mitchell. Yes. Sims. Yes. Sosnowski. Yes. Sullivan. Yes. Walsh.
On a vote of 8 voting yes, 1 voting no, and 0 voting present, Senate Bill 508 will be favorably reported to the full House. Senate Bill 1990, Representative Evans, this is a cleanup bill with regards to tobacco law that you passed last year. Is that correct? Yes. Questions of the committee? Seeing none, there's a motion due pass on Senate Bill 19.
One quick
question, Representative Harris.
Thank you. Forgive me, what does the bill do? Mark?
I think Rob Carr or someone's here from the Retail Merchants Association with detail. Alec is here.
Please identify yourself.
I'm Alec Laird with the Illinois Merchants Association, Retail Merchants Association. This is a trailer bill to House Bill 2494 last year that included a license for all retailers who sell cigarettes or tobacco. And what this would do, it was clarify and streamline some record-keeping requirements. It would provide a waiver for closed-loop distributions for retailers, and it would also clarify some training requirements. It's agreed on bill between the Department of Revenue, IRMA, and the American Lung Association is okay with it as well.
And are there any fees in the bill?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I understand there's an amendment. Is there a committee amendment to this? Is there a committee amendment to this? Is there a committee amendment that we need to adopt for this?
Yes.
Okay, so Representative Evans moves for the adoption of House Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate Bill 1990. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. And Senate Bill 1990 is hereby amended. There's a motion do pass as amended by Representative Evans. Is there leave? Leave being granted, Senate Bill 1919 will be favorably reported on a vote of 9 voting yes, 0 voting no, and 0 voting present.
Thank you.
We have House Resolution 209, Representative Manley. This urges Congress to pass Congressional House Bill 787 regarding the flow of money and the amount of money coming to Illinois versus the amount of money leaving Illinois. Is there a motion? Any questions? Representative Harris? All right, there's a motion recommends be adopted House Resolution 209 by Representative Harris. Is there leave? Leave being granted, this resolution will be favorably recommended to the full House on a vote of 9 voting yes, 0 voting no, and 0 voting present. We have Senate Bill 1526, Representative Walsh, temporary member of this committee. This is a bill which is an initiative of the county assessors, which would make changes to the county assessors. Is that accurate? Is there any opposition to this bill?
None that I'm aware of.
Questions of the committee?
Like me to explain it? Basically, current law requires the Board of Review to notify each and every taxing district affected when a taxpayer files a complaint seeking a change of an assessment of $100,000 or more. Basically, what this legislation does, it makes the following changes in order to modernize the communications and permit faster transmission and response and relieve some of the administrative burdens of the Board of Review. First, it requires an upfront notice from the complainant when the complaint is filed if they are seeking a change of assessment of $100,000 or more, and reduces the unwanted notices to smaller taxing districts who would have no intention of intervening in the complaint by requiring the notice to automatically be sent to school districts, municipalities, park districts, and fire protection districts and community colleges only.
Representative, are you reading from a prepared statement?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Do you want me
Would
to
you
wing
like
it?
to submit your
Do you
prepared
want me-
statement to the committee? No,
So basically, it reduces.
Representative Harris is-
Instead of sending it to every taxing district, it goes.
Representative
directly to the
Walsh,
biggest
you're
one.
not going to be invited back to this committee unless
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Senate Bill 1526, there's a motion to pass by Representative Harris. Is there leave? Leave being granted, this bill be favorably reported to the full House on a vote of 9 voting yes, 0 voting no, and 0 voting present. Okay, so we have one additional item to take up, and we're waiting for Leader Curry. In the meantime, I know there's some folks here that are interested in House Bill 142, which is the checkoff for the USS Illinois. It would be the intention of the chair that we'll do a checkoff bill in the next few days and decide what checkoffs, but I understand Representative Walsh that this is a 2-year, this would be a 2-year checkoff, and it would be for the purpose of,
It would be for the purpose of funding the Illinois Commissioning, or the USS Illinois Commissioning Committee.
okay. Any questions of the committee regarding that? I also understand there are some folks here on the liquefied natural gas issue, and that bill came to this committee late, and we don't intend to take it up today, but is there anyone that would like to offer subject matter on that? Okay, we're going to stand at ease for just a moment. Okay, well, we're back in, and we have Ray Drake from United Parcel Service here today with regards to, what is the bill number that of interest? Senate Bill 1907. Please proceed.
A little too loud. For alternative fuels, what was it on? Alternative fuels for vehicles, be it passenger cars or commercial vehicles, and really of all sizes. Currently, within trucking, there's a number of companies that are moving towards liquid natural gas for tractors. There's certainly some benefits to doing so. Number one is energy diversification. I think everybody's aware that for many years we've just been sort of running our vehicles on a petroleum product, but now we have an abundant supply of natural gas in the U.S. Energy diversification is important, and there are carriers now moving to both CNG and LNG for their vehicles. But one issue with the motor fuel tax is there is a lesser energy value to liquid natural gas as opposed to diesel fuel. And therefore, essentially, you pay about a 60% premium with the motor fuel tax if you run on LNG versus diesel. Now, right now, carriers who are moving towards LNG are already paying a significant additional cost because of the lack of mass production with these vehicles. Right now, they're considerably more expensive than diesel, so there's that initial expense hurdle. We at UPS do believe that energy diversification is important. We believe in paying our fair share of motor fuel tax, but we would like to pay. We don't want to have a penalty in place, not just UPS, but trucking in general. We don't want to have a penalty in place if we use liquid natural gas or compressed natural gas or propane natural gas. We want to pay our fair share of motor fuel taxes regardless of the type of fuel used. This bill, in fact, does that. It puts the LNG tax at a diesel gallon equivalent. Diesel gallon equivalent essentially means that you are paying the same level of tax for the same energy content of the fuel that you are using. So in other words, if a heavy truck gets 6.5 miles to the gallon on diesel, you're going to essentially then pay the same motor fuel tax to go that 6.5 miles, be it diesel, LNG, or CNG. It wouldn't matter what you ran on. So essentially, it's really a fairness issue. Right now, basically all the states that surround Illinois have moved to diesel gallon equivalent. There is one exception, that is Wisconsin. They use a rather different formula, but essentially they arrive at the same level of taxation. But it's really sort of where the industry is going, and certainly that really tells the story of this bill.
Questions of the committee on this issue? Representative Harris.
The tax on motor fuels for gasoline is 19 cents a gallon, been fixed at 19 cents a gallon for a while. I believe the tax on diesel is it 21 or 21 and a half?
21.4.
21.4, 21 and a half.
Or 5.
So what you're suggesting is, in essence, what would be a lowering of the tax on LNG at a diesel, whatever the diesel equivalent rate is. Mm-hmm. Any idea what that would equate to in terms of a tax? In other words, if you're not paying 21 cents for whatever the equivalency is now.
You would pay the exact same level of tax in terms of the energy equivalent, basically for.
Okay.
But right now you're paying about 11 cents more to go the same distance that you would over what the diesel rate is.
Okay, so there is a financial, it seems to me there is a financial impact if, as an example, I can go so far on a gallon of diesel fuel. If I'm driving a tractor trailer truck, I can go so far on a gallon of diesel fuel.
It's about 34, you pay about 34 cents for, right now, currently on the LNG tax, where if you're in diesel, you'd be paying the 21.4.
Okay, that's looked at as, that's from your side as a premium. It would seem to me that there would be, I'll have to think through this. This is the first time I've seen the bill. I think I would have to think through this. There is, it would seem to me to be some financial impact by way of the fact that we are not, we're not getting as much revenue in through the diesel tax if we make this switch, correct?
No, this does not impact the diesel, the motor fuel tax for diesel at all.
Okay.
What it essentially is doing, it would put LNG at the same level of taxation as diesel fuel. Right now, you're actually paying, there's a penalty to use LNG.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Well, Mr. Drake, we appreciate you being here today and your interest in this, and your testimony will be sufficient at the point in which we decide to make a decision with regards to this bill formally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Bradley. Thank the committee.
Okay, we're back at ease. Add Stewart to the roll.
Chairman,
Yes.
now an appropriate time to move for adjournment of the committee.
You're out of order. Okay, add Leader Curry to the roll. Okay, on House Joint Resolution, we're back in. On House Joint Resolution Constitutional Amendment 26, we have Leader Curry.
The millionaire's tax, and as you know, on the ballot in November, the question was asked, would you agree or disagree with the concept of taxing people with incomes over $1 million to help fund public education? And I believe it was close to 70% of the people who answered that question yes. This is a proposed constitutional amendment that would give people the opportunity to vote to change the Constitution to do just that. And the money, as I say, would go to fund public education on a per capita basis. And all the material that I have seen says that millionaire taxes do not discourage people from establishing residence in states that have done this: Maryland, New Jersey, Connecticut, Hawaii, Alaska. And I think that many people do think that it is fair for people who have more to pay more in terms of taxes and to do a better job of funding public education. So that is the proposed amendment. I would be grateful to respond to your questions, and I would certainly be grateful to have your support for adoption of this constitutional change.
Okay, we have slips and as proponents, Amy Ballinger-Cole with Advanced Illinois, Cynthia Reisman, Illinois Federation of Teachers, Dave Lewitsky, SEIU, Deanna Sullivan, Illinois Statewide School Management Alliance, Diana Rutledge, Large Unit School District Association, Jason Keller, AFL-CIO, Jessica Andy, Stanford Children, John Cole, HEP, AFSCME, Kurt Hilgendorf, Chicago Teachers, Larry Stuffel, Illinois Alliance of Special Ed Administrators, and Illinois Adult and Continuing Educators Association, Laura Farr, CBS, Peg Agnos, Linden Scope, and Illinois High School District Organization, Sarah Hartwick, Advance Illinois, Victoria Watkins, Office of the Mayor, I guess that's the city of Chicago, and William Potts, SEIU Local 73, and we have William McNary here from Citizens Action who would like to testify briefly. Add Tryon to the roll, and add Turner to the roll. Mr. McNary, briefly.
Mr. Chairman and distinguished members of this committee, thank you for this opportunity to testify. I will be brief. My name is William McNary, and I'm the co-director of Citizen Action Illinois, and we support House Joint Resolution Constitutional Amendment 26. Should the Illinois Constitution be amended to require that each school district receive additional revenue based upon their number of students from an additional 3% tax on income greater than $1 million? When Illinois voters were asked this question on the ballot on November 4th of last year, well over 60% of the voters said yes. And we believe we need a fair, responsible budget with adequate revenues to fund not only education, but health care and human services and public safety and other priorities. And since revenue should be part of the solution, it makes sense to raise it from those who can most afford to pay. Indeed, this proposal would allow us to tax those who benefited the most when the income tax was recently rolled back from 5% to 3.75%. According to a February study from the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability, millionaires received an average tax refund of $37,000. That's 70 times the $526 that went to those who filed from $35,000 to $50,000. That's 99 times those $372 that went from those who filed from $25,000 to $35,000. And that's 344 times the $107 that went to those with incomes of $25,000 or less. So not only did we blow a $5 billion hole in the budget, we threatened devastating cuts to schools and health care and human services and public safety and other shared priorities. Thus, we've given a massive windfall to those who needed it the least, while defunding public services to those who need them the most. Not only did we give the money to those people who are less likely to spend it, we've already worsened the already serious problem of income inequality. Lastly, Citizen Action believes in a long-term structural solution to Illinois' fiscal problems. We prefer to amend the Illinois Constitution to permit a fair tax with lower tax rate for folks with lower income levels and higher tax rates for those with higher incomes. It would focus our state on the right priorities while ensuring that the wealthiest among us pay their fair share. Taxing those who can best afford it should be part of our long-term solution, and this amendment is completely complementary of movement forward on that principle. We believe that this constitutional amendment begins to correct some of the economic imbalances between the wealthy and the rest of us. Those people who have achieved the greatest financial success here in Illinois should help build a society that ensures a high-quality public school education that is available to every child, regardless of where they live or who they were born to. This would help ensure a society that works for everyone. Should millionaires pay more to fund education in Illinois? We say yes, and well over 60% of the Illinois voters agree. Ladies and gentlemen of this committee, we hope that you vote yes.
Okay, we're going to
As
hold
well.
questions.
Thank you.
We're going to let the opponents, Greg Bays with the Illinois Manufacturers Association, Todd Meisch with the Illinois Chamber, we have Keith Statz with the Illinois Chamber also, and then the additional opponents, Brad Babcock, Chemical Industry, David Fromm, Kim Meisch, NFIB, Mark Densler, Manufacturers, Michael Reaver, Chicagoland Chamber, and Rob Carr, Illinois Retail Merchants. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Chamber is in opposition to this measure for two very important reasons. The first and foremost for us representing the breadth of the business community is that this is really a tax on success. We, on the one hand, often talk about how we want our small businesses to have a climate to grow and be successful and grow into the kind of businesses that employ hundreds, thousands of people, yet this is going to be a tax that acts as a discouragement that and is really a tax on success. And we think that's very important to point out, again, that there's a lot of discussion about how we want a vibrant financial sector. We want vibrant, growing small businesses, yet we're going to go ahead and put out a penalty for those people who actually succeed according to what a lot of people talk about that they want to see. Making that worse, I'll just point out, is that there's no definition of income in this amendment. So this could easily be interpreted by a future General Assembly to be gross income, not adjusted income, which again would go ahead and bring in an awful lot of additional small businesses and investors there as well. But also I will go ahead and disagree somewhat with respectfully with the majority leader. There is a lot of evidence that tax migration is a very important and relevant issue. As a matter of fact, after New Jersey implemented its millionaire's tax. The state itself came out and estimated that it lost $2.4 billion of income as a direct result of tax migration. So we think it's very, very clear. We hear all the time from successful individuals that with all of the uncertainty out there already, when you're looking at Chicago pensions, our own state issues, our own state debate about where those tax rates are going to be, just to address the budget issue, and then you talk about a surcharge on top of that. We think that tax migration is going to be a very big issue and one that should argue against passage of this constitutional amendment. Thank you.
Mr. Bass.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. It's a great opportunity to be here again. It's sort of deja vu, remembering a couple of years ago that we did this. I always enjoy the idea that my name might be attached to millionaire somehow, some way, and this is probably as close as I'll ever get to it. But it is too bad. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, my colleague from the chamber is exactly right. Tax migration is an issue. The evidence is there that Maryland and New Jersey lost high earners to this particular proposal. The idea that we're not addressing tax reform in a broad manner, which has been talked about a lot in this session, but remains to be not on the forefront, bothers the business community. The unease that's there that has been in this state by the job creators about the uncertainty of how you're going to pay for pensions, how you're going to pay for education, how you're going to fund essential services only continues to grow. And to put this amendment and pass this amendment onto the ballot, I think will just be another nail in the coffin for job creators to want to stay in this state. So I urge a no vote. I respect the vote of the people that occurred last November. It's an easy vote to say yes to, much like in being able to say tax somebody else to take care of the problems that we face in this state. So I strongly urge a no vote if possible today.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and take a motion, open the roll, because I know we have
Could
members
I
that are
just
very
respond
busy.
briefly to
Yes,
on the
please,
question
and
of
then we'll go
evidence?
proceed.
In 2004, New Jersey raised a tax on people with incomes over $500,000. So it gives us a kind of a natural experiment to see what did happen. New Jersey, right next to Connecticut, right next to New York, next to Philadelphia, made it easy for people to migrate if taxes were a reason why they ought. The reality is that the number of millionaires in New Jersey actually went up after the tax was imposed, and all the studies show that people move for reasons having to do with jobs, families. Those kinds of things are what compel people to move, and on an average year, only 1.7% of the people in this country move from one state to another. In fact, to the extent that people move because of tax and those kinds of economic climate reasons, they tend to migrate to places where there are good, strong public services, where the roads are good, mass transit works, and the schools provide kids with a quality education. So I would just urge that there will not be a net out-migration if this were adopted by the people on the ballot in 2016, and that in fact we might see real economic growth if we do it. This tax would bring in about $1 billion a year. That translates into close to $500 per student across the public education system in Illinois. So I renew my request for an aye vote.
Mr. Bays, briefly, but before that, we have a motion recommends be adopted House Joint Resolution Constitutional Amendment 26 by Representative Turner, and asks that the roll be opened. And Mr. Bays.
Representative, in all due respect, in talking with our members, our board, tax policy indeed is a driver of where they locate. You tied this particular measure with the estate tax issue in this state, and you just add one more reason why you're going to see people make decisions on tax policy.
Representative Turner is going to amend his motion to do pass House Joint Resolution Constitutional Amendment 26 and ask that the roll be opened. Questions of the committee? Representative Sims votes aye. Questions of the committee? Representative Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, help me understand, and the comments from the
Representative Evans votes aye.
comments from the business representatives of the business community certainly I think are valid, but help me understand the timing of this. Why now?
We actually moved in this direction, I think, 2 years ago, so there was a hope that we might have seen this on the ballot as a constitutional amendment in November of 2014. It didn't happen. We did instead propose an advisory referendum, and as you know, people by a significant majority said yes. So following upon that referendum, we're back here with the proposal to put the proposition on the ballot in November 2016.
So it is certainly possible that we could do this in the next General Assembly session of the spring of 2016.
I think the requirement is that you have to
have
have 6 months, so May of 2016 would be the final date by which you could do it. But there's no reason not to begin action now.
Hasn't the Senate indicated that they will not take up any constitutional amendment until
I believe
the spring of 2016?
one member of the majority party in the Senate was quoted as saying that he didn't believe his chamber would be interested in adopting a constitutional amendment this far ahead of the deadline, but that's one member of the Senate, and I don't see that we should be bound by casual comments made to the press by our confreres across the rotunda.
A fairly important member of the Senate, such as if the majority leader of the House made a comment, I would take that fairly seriously
But
as to what might
I am
happen.
delighted to hear that, Representative.
Help me understand, this is a constitutional amendment, so it takes how many votes in order to pass?
So it would require 71 votes in the House and 36 votes in the Senate, and then there's a complicated formula having to do with how many people vote in the November election and what you figure in terms of who voted on this question, and then there's another way that it could succeed depending on what portion of the electorate actually participated in the election.
And I'm just more interested right now, and I understand the popular vote, but I'm more interested right now in the legislative vote. I seem to
71.
recall that when the amendment was put forward last year, it didn't come to a vote in the House. Do you recall why?
It was not my amendment. This, of course, is proposed by the Speaker, Representative Madigan. He was the one who chose not to call it. I would guess that we didn't have 71 votes, but that's only a guess.
Isn't it still Representative Speaker Madigan's amendment?
It is still Speaker Madigan's amendment. I want to give him the opportunity to call it or not to call it during this spring session.
I might be wrong, but I seem to recall that there were two members on the other side of the aisle, on the majority party.
Your math may be better than mine, I don't know.
That said that they didn't want to vote for this, and that meant that there was not going to be
There would
potentially
not be
71 votes,
Well,
assuming
but
that all of us.
we welcome Republican support. We've always operated in a bipartisan fashion, and I see no reason we shouldn't operate in a bipartisan fashion on this issue.
So you think you may have changed two members' minds?
Might have, and might have changed
Possibly,
yours.
possibly. No, I assure you, you did not.
Darn it.
Let me just simply reemphasize, though, what was said, that the additional taxation is a disincentive. How do you handle, or how do you think that folks who participate in the pass-through kinds of organizations, the partners, the owners, and the others that participate in pass-through kinds of entities, not the CEO of Boeing or Mondelez or the big ones that get multi-millions of dollars every year in income, but those smaller ones, those job creators, how is this going to affect them, do you think?
If they're actually earning, if their adjusted gross income is over $1 million, it will affect them. They'll be paying 3%.
And isn't that,
above what
won't
they
that
otherwise
be,
would
won't
have.
that be a disincentive to them to create more?
Except that the evidence doesn't support the claim. It makes intuitive sense, oh yes, if I'm going to have to pay more in taxes, I'll move someplace else. But by and large, people do not make their decisions about life and work based upon taxes. They make the decision based upon where the jobs are, where their families are. Maybe at retirement, they decide they'd like a nicer climate. But those are the decisions that push people, not taxes. And as I say, the experiment in New Jersey gives us a kind of a natural happening that helps us understand whether or not people do respond by moving. And in fact, what you saw were more millionaires in New Jersey after enactment of the tax on high earners rather than fewer.
I'm
not arguing that there will not be a single individual who will not take this into account, but by and large, it is not going to have a significant impact on people's decisions about where they live.
And I'll simply close by saying I want to echo what Mr. Bays said from IMA. Yes, this is just one individual tax, but when you take that as a whole and you combine it with something like the estate tax, there really is a disincentive that is being put forward here. Then people do act on what tax policy is. Whether we agree that or not, they do act on that. So, but thank you for answering the questions.
Proceed with the roll call.
Bradley,
Yes.
Zaleski, Harris, Curry,
Aye.
Mitchell, Sosnowski, Stewart, Sullivan, Tryon, Turner, Walsh.
On a vote of 8 voting yes, 5 voting no, 0 voting present, House Joint Resolution Constitutional Amendment 26 will be favorably reported to the full House.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you, Leader. Seeing no additional business to come before the House Revenue and Finance Committee, this committee will stand in recess and will reconvene at 3 o'clock today on the subject matter, 3 o'clock tomorrow, subject matter on the pension management fees. Thank you.